discuss any of the items on the consent agenda, and as long as that's not going to, Val's not going to want a separate vote on that item. Is that kind of what you're thinking, Larry?
That's what my thinking is, yeah.
And Val, you know that? What if the discussion takes you somewhere down the road where you think, okay, I don't really want to approve it?
I'm fairly confident, given some of the reading and questions pre-meeting work that has happened, that I would want to approve it. I just would like to ask for something just to get clarity and get it on record. That's all.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, you can ask those questions.
Okay, okay with that?
Sure.
Back to the motion and the approval on the agenda. Gina, will you call the roll, please?
Sure.
Aren't we gonna have
Oh, sorry.
discussion?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, about the agenda?
Yeah. Isn't that what we just talked about?
No, actually, we're talking that time, a little confusing. We're talking that time about the consent agenda, but we're back on approving the agenda first.
Got it.
Okay, do you want to talk? Do you want to have a discussion about the agenda?
Nope.
Okay.
All right.
Tina,
So
can
then
you
roll
the
call.
Thanks.
Yes.
That was
Cliff,
fun.
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Val, and Larry.
Aye. Okay, moving to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move it.
Second?
Seconded.
Okay, discussion?
Just a quick question on the minutes, Tina. The timestamps weren't on there.
Oh, they weren't?
Oh, they were, yeah. I'm looking at it right now.
Well,
Yep,
I
they're on
didn't
there.
have them on my copy or on what was listed as the board packet on the
There-
website.
Yep, they're on the,
Yeah.
should be. I'm looking at the packet from the web, and they should be after the number, the title, and then there'd be parentheses with timestamp on it.
I didn't get those. So that's great. It's just, I looked both at my printed packet and also to the link that was with the meeting. And I printed those off and it didn't have them. So we'll catch it next
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's on the board packet.
It's on mine too.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Val, did you have a question about one of the?
Yeah, and one, and this is just generally speaking with respect to the permits, and reading through the permits and the recommendations make a lot of sense. I think what I'm curious about, especially after reading more about the Atlas 14 model itself, is what is the strategy, or what's the impact on some of these permit applications with respect to the modeling and potential future flood prediction?
Well, I can speak to what we look at during the review process. So in order to meet permit requirements, the applicant must demonstrate that they're not increasing runoff rates for the Atlas 14 critical storm events. So the 2-year, 10-year, and the 100-year. And I don't know what the process is about making changes to the model after permits are approved.
Yep,
Maybe
so I
someone
asked
from
Brandon
the other team.
Barnes from BAR about that, and he had responded. And Val, I think I forwarded that to you. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, there's more detail there. But what he indicated was when we have large projects that might get put into our model, you know, some of the projects that we're doing, some of the flood control work, and Aaron can correct me if I'm wrong here, but that will go into our model right away as part of our effort. We're actually updating the model as part of our efforts. When we have these permits, they're site specific. And we might do a like an end of the year batch of those to make sure that those are in the model. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I would also just add that the permit requirements where we're talking about changes to rate, as Nicole was mentioning, are meant to not increase them over existing conditions. So the permit requirements are set up to not change things over existing conditions. And then the volume reduction requirements are more about a water quality piece, so they don't necessarily have as much of an impact on flood control. So just wanted to add that.
No, and I appreciate the clarity, and I hadn't had an opportunity to read through Brandon's response. So The reason I bring it up is when I look at the validation and I think through, claims like no net increase in water levels, it just makes me curious based off of which standard or what information. So I believe, Tina, you and I said I'll get an opportunity to meet with Nicole, which I think will definitely help that. But I think given what I read about the model itself, it seems like maintenance and some of these runoff assumptions would be, some of them would definitely play a role and change that model.
And we may, when we get to the board discussion issue, that's the kind of thing that we may want to look at having a workshop or a special session on to go over this in more detail so that we all understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Okay, does that take care of it, Val?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, fine.
Thank
Tina,
you.
you want to call the roll on the motion in the second?
Sure. This is for the consent agenda, just as a reminder.
Consent agenda, yep.
This is Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
Diane,
I,
Val,
I
and Larry.
Aye. Okay, now we come to visitor comments. Does anybody that's visiting here want to make comments to the group at this point?
Yeah, hi Larry, it's Bruce.
Oh, hi, Bruce.
A few comments.
Okay. Fire away, you have 4 minutes.
Okay, I think I've been well trained, even though Marge isn't there. You can tell if she left a legacy behind. Good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight to request that the Water District spend some more time assessing the Snail Lake Wetland A area. I've lived near both for 40 years and have extensively walked and observed this region for essentially all of those 40 years. I am well aware that we have been slowly increasing rainfall for all of those years. And the sudden jump in rainfall starting around 2014 has impacted the groundwater. Wetland A also experienced a large flow into it from Grass Lake when Grass Lake overflowed on the North Berm a few years back. But the jump in year-round water levels in Wetland A and Snail Lake seems to be more persistent and higher than can be explained by a few years of high rainfall. It appears there is more year-round flow going into these water bodies from surrounding drainage routes. And this is from my personal observations of looking at these creeks and culverts for years. Specifically, I'm suggesting that the Water District complete a more detailed analysis of the water levels in Wetland A and Snail Lake, the impact of development in the past 40 years on these levels, and define what we can expect going forward. I have recently had the opportunity to review the Snail Lake augmentation study completed back in September 1991. This study describes the ground and surface water in the area. It may serve as a good starting point for the impact of lake seepage, runoff, rainfall, etc., on the persistent high water levels in both Wetland A and Snail Lake. This study should be of particular interest to the Water District because lake seepage and runoff have probably changed dramatically in the 30 years since the study was completed. The Water District approves individual projects when they are brought to the board, but to my knowledge, the cumulative impact of these projects has not been assessed. I believe that the sum of all this development is having a negative impact on these two water bodies, and that further development and project approvals should probably be delayed until a better understanding is completed. Changes proposed by the Ramsey County Parks and Rec Department around Wetland A include modification of the trails around Wetland A. They'll need a precise understanding of what water levels to expect before construction starts. This alone should be justification enough to spend the time and money on the study. An important additional benefit would be to inform the board regarding decisions on future projects that come before you, specifically around Snail Lake, Wetland A, and north of 96, which is where a lot of this water comes from. So in summary, please consider a project to develop an updated and more complete study of this drainage area. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. And you did a very nice job staying within the time limits. Any comments from the board on Bruce's presentation? Anybody have anything to say? I think that it's kind of ironic that we were sort of like having a discussion about that when we were going through the agenda as to how we looked at things. But have we done any relook at the area up here, given the critical nature of this? Anybody?
Well, I was just trying to refresh my memory what year we did do a pretty major update of the swim models. That's when we were bringing Atlas 14 into the modeling efforts for the district. So I can say that land conditions and the major watershed project, or BMPs that the cities have put in, would be reflected in that watershed. I don't know if it was 2010 or 11 or 12. I'll try to find that here. But when we were doing the Atlas 14 updates, we did a pretty major update of the watershed conditions at that time. So for what it's worth, I wanted to mention that.
Have we looked, just playing on Bruce's comments, have we looked at the effects of, and that's just what we were talking about, is all the permits, all the changes that have been made, the storm sewer inputs and things like that. It seems like it would be a worthwhile thing to do because we run into it in all kinds of places within the watershed district. Whoops, you're muted.
Sorry. Yep, I was muted. I mean, I believe all that we've done modeling and studies in this area, as you know, over the last several years. And it's my understanding that all that has been updated in the model. Would that be correct, Erin, as far as projects, permits?
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly look back in the last few years and see, if there's anything that, isn't in there. But I know that there was a pretty big effort district-wide to update models for the Atlas 14 effort. So we can certainly check to make sure that there aren't any permits or cost share projects that have been missed, but I would be surprised if they would change the model significantly, but we can certainly look. The district tracks all of those projects for water quality purposes. So I'll put it on a list, but I wanted to let you know it was updated for Atlas 14.
Okay, can we then put that on the list of things that we would look at the next meeting? Get an update on that?
Yes, we can give an update at the next meeting.
Okay. All right, any other comments on Bruce's comments? Or Diane?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking through what Val said and these other comments. And I was also thinking about how I think, being holistic on the Beltline study projects and how things relate. And I'm very interested in you looking at that, Erin, but I'm also interested in a broader perspective because it isn't just here that is impacted. And I guess I want to make sure that when we have permits going forward, that it's not just a singular timestamp, but this whole idea of looking at the cumulative effects. I'd like there to be some kind of a methodology to evaluate that as part of it. And I understand the pieces I think that you're already doing, but the extra rainfall and some of the issues that have caused flooding, and then all this development up and down the district. I think we need to have just a broad look at that, whether it's with each permit or project or whatever.
I would say that that's what our permitting program does. So our permits require us and our applicants to not increase the rate or the volume of water going downstream. So anytime you approve a permit, you can be assured that they are matching the rate of water and they're reducing volume based on our requirements. So I think that is actually what you are doing when you're approving these permits. You are evaluating that cumulative effect and making sure that we're not adding to the situation.
May I propose that we maybe consider a workshop on this? I spent a good 4 hours with their technical documentation on the validation, and I think they've done a ton of great work here, but there's some definite questions that I think would benefit from an offline discussion without the need for a decision.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that Cliff, did you?
Cliff? Yep.
Yeah, let me just add that the modeling, and Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. The modeling is based on the planned land uses that the cities all include in their comprehensive plans. So if an area is slated for residential development, we're assuming that that development is going to occur, and that's in the model. So everywhere we have a new project right now, that's been assumed in the model. It's not new. So that runoff is already programmed into the calculations for the modeling. So, and also consider that our district is 95% or more developed already. A couple of percent of development here and there does not significantly impact the runoff amounts, but those runoff amounts are already calculated as long as the land use stays the same. So just to clarify.
And I just want to pipe in. I appreciate Val's request for a workshop, but I feel that our watershed district has really spent a lot of time over the last couple of years really addressing this issue and thinking long and hard about it. And maybe it'd be better if Val needs more updating on everything that's been done and to get up to speed on it, that maybe that could be a separate learning time. But I don't know. I feel that we need a workshop on this myself.
Well, it could also be a part of a workshop to update it. Maybe there just needs to be more clarity on it, because what Bruce's point was that when we look around an area and we see things that seem to be unusual, the question that the citizens have around here and all the people who walk around and all that sort of stuff is, why is this? And I think we need to have, I think we need to have a better answer for that. So maybe we just need to understand this a little bit better. Pam, I know you've been on the watershed district forever. Most of the rest of us are fairly new, except Cliff. And it may benefit us from learning more about this process.
I think, and maybe it is my education, but given what I've read in terms of the last time impervious areas was updated, you're looking at 2011, 2010 as cross-reference data points. And I do think having an informed decision or an informed conversation would be helpful. Maybe my questions can be put to bed quicker.
Okay. Any other comments on this? Are you going to come back at the next meeting then, like I wrote down at some point, and update whether or not the models for this stand, just so we have an idea of what's going on?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, any other comments on that? Thank you all, and thank you, Bruce, for bringing that to us. Hopefully we'll get some input on that. Now we go to item number 5, the permit program. Nicole?
Yeah, I have the enforcement report up for you. Really ramping up inspections this time of year. I know mine and Mary, our heads are spinning as it usually is this time of year. So getting back out there, doing a lot of initial walkthroughs lately, issuing new permits. So a lot of construction projects are either resuming or starting at this point in time. If you have any questions about any of the project updates, let me know.
I don't have a question for that. I have a request that whoever is speaking share their screen and show what we're talking about. I have a hard time flipping on my laptop back and forth between our watershed document and listening, and it really makes it easier for me to follow if you just have it pulled up for me. Just a request.
You want me to do that now?
Just maybe moving forward.
Okay.
I don't have any comments on your report, but I'm just asking in general.
One comment I had, which is not on this, but you seem to have attended an awful lot of really interesting meetings in the last month.
Oh.
Is there anything from those meetings I read the list of them and I thought, gosh, there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on. Is there anything out of that that we should know about from your perspective? Or I'm looking
Yeah, I can,
for watershed regs, Washington County Water Consortium, Public Works Flood Reduction.
yeah. The Metro Watershed Regulators is kind of interesting. It's a group of permit program managers and inspectors throughout the Metro. So different watershed districts, like all of our staff, permitting staff get together. I would say it's been happening about quarterly, just to discuss issues that are coming up, you know, and make sure that we're being consistent, or if we have helpful ideas for each other and how to run the permit programs. And I think that's been a really cool thing to collaborate on and get ideas from. The latest thing we were talking about is for permit fees. I guess it doesn't sound that exciting, but it was interesting to me about the process for electronic payments, because we just accept checks right now, and there's so much more that goes into it than I ever thought there would be on the sort of accounting administration side for starting to accept e-payments. But I have to believe that eventually we'll have to get there. People aren't that enthused about cutting checks these days. So that was a good meeting. I would say another interesting meeting was the St. Paul Port Authority had invited me to speak at their annual Spring River meeting. They have a lot of tenants along the Mississippi River that rent land, a lot of industry and shipping. So a lot of businesses that I wasn't familiar with, but a couple that I've had, you know, communications with regarding permits, but they just asked me to kind of explain watershed permit rules and construction stormwater kind of 101. So yeah, that was interesting. And they also had a PCA person presenting on industrial stormwater permitting. So yeah, confined space training was virtual this year. We always do that in person, but not as exciting, but
yeah, well, but very important. I
yeah.
train people on confined spaces, so I know what it's all about.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, if you have any questions on those meetings, let me know.
Yep. I just wanted to get your basic overview because it seemed like there were so many interesting topics that came up.
Yeah, there were some
interesting
different meetings this month. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Stewardship Grant Program. Hey, where page go? There you are.
Here. Yeah, the budget status updates in there. I don't know, Pam, if you want me to share that, I can do that quick. Nothing really to report, I guess. Projects are coming in. We're doing a lot of project intakes and getting plans developed. So I think we'll see another busy year if things stay on track the way they're going.
Good. Okay. Anybody? There we go. Thank you. Anyone else got anything there? Okay, item number 7, board issues, policies, and operations. And Pam, you weren't at the last meeting, but this is a section we put in so that the board can start to look at and address some issues that we never seem to get time to get back to and decide either what we're going to do or how we're going to handle it or what the next steps should be. And if any board members have any additional information they want to put on this list, please let me know. It's things that have come up over a period of time that I've noticed that I at least would like to see some different closure on. On this particular meeting, we have, goes to the other side. And some of these are just going to be updates, but the annual meeting, when we had our election, we talked before about changing the bylaws to move the annual meeting from technically in January to March, which would be after the approval cycle period. So Tina, do you want to let us know where that's at?
Yeah, so that's after the appointment process for the new board
Right.
member. Yes, so as we talked about in February, that would require a bylaw change. And so that is something that's on my list to do. I've talked with Tracy a little bit about it as well. I don't know if you remember, about a year ago now, I presented you with a table of contents for a governance manual for our district. That went to the wayside during COVID last year, but I am bringing that back too. So we'll be looking at governance documents, which will include our bylaws for review. And then we can make that change in that. I would anticipate we would do that probably in the fall. You know, I would start bringing you more information about that in the fall.
Okay. All right. Any comments on that from the other board members? Nope. Okay. Now we have communicating between board meetings, and Tracy, I would look for you for help on this. I sent out an email with some of these items on it just to start the thought process going on. I did specifically request in there we don't have a discussion. However, we do have a need, I think, to exchange information, and we sometimes do between board members. Can you give us an idea of what would be the most effective way for us to handle items away from the board meeting, so to make the board meetings more efficient?
You know, Larry, it's just a slippery slope, right? I mean, the idea is whatever you're trying to gather that information for the board meeting, if it's a one-way out, here's a topic of discussion, fine. But if someone gets back and says, you know, I don't really want to talk about that, I'm afraid that homeowners on Twin Lake won't like that, that's the kind of information that all the public should hear a board member say. So it's really difficult. If you have some substantive issues that you really do want to discuss between meetings, honestly, the only other issue everybody's going to cringe is to have more open meetings. But otherwise, I mean, you can do administrative things. Tina could say, I've set this workshop for this time, fine. Larry, you could say, I'm adding this item to the agenda. You probably could say, does anybody else want to add something to the agenda? But you have to be really careful that somebody doesn't respond and say, well, I don't want that on the agenda because I'm afraid my neighbors will be mad if I say I don't want to talk about Twin Lakes again or something, you know, so it's really tough. So what kind of things do you think need to happen that aren't happening or should happen now, Larry?
Well, you know, basically the kind of rule that we've always gone with is that when three or more of us meet together, we're having an open meeting. And so if there are more than three of us together, we don't talk about board issues. But one-on-one, we can talk about board issues because that's normal. In sending out that memo, I was kind of trying to let people know where my thought process was. And I did say very clearly in there, don't respond back, you get this, got it. And that's the end of it. But I guess what you're saying is that if we notify the board as a board, we send something to the board, we have to be clear that we're not responding to it, but we respond to it in an open meeting rather than on email.
Right. I mean, just think about if you weren't on the board and some board members came to the board, and you can tell they've talked about this already. Even if what they talked about just might have streamlined the meeting and been maybe even better for community members, you can understand how that might breed some suspicion. Like, how much did they talk about this vote before it actually happened? And how did they know this is what's going to work? So, I mean, I think you have, you know, fantastic instincts. And it's really, you have to be careful that it'll pass the smell test. And isn't that great legal advice? But I mean, that's really the issue is if you come too prepared to a meeting and it seems like the topic has already been discussed, that's where your community and your, you know, the members of the community are going to have some concerns if the board is having discussions that they're not party to. Yeah, go ahead, Cliff.
This topic comes up with city councils having workshops ahead of the meeting, but those workshops are open meetings.
Right.
So even though they have a lot of discussion in the workshops, they bring that discussion to the board, to the council meeting, and it was public. So anytime we discuss an issue to the point where we're reaching a decision and it's not an open meeting, that opens us up to the issues that Tracy talks about.
Yep.
So it's,
And I understand that. I was just looking to see what extent, what kind of latitude we have, which I think the answer is none.
Well, it's minimal. I mean, it's administrative, but really shouldn't be anything substantive. Does that make sense? I mean, that line
Yeah.
is pretty clear.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. And I understand that too about the workshops, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute. And Cliff, you noted, and I've noted too, that like city councils oftentimes have short workshops before or after a meeting to increase efficiency. And they're open, but you just can't make a decision. And so I'm fine with that. Okay, anybody else have any comment on that item? The next item on this is the website needs, and I think is Lauren going to be on the call?
She wasn't able to be here tonight, but she did write her communications update. I asked her to
Right.
address that. So if you've read that, she gives an idea of how she would go, how she wants plans to go ahead with making changes to our website. And that will include interviews with each of you and how you use the site and what you see as needing to be changed or added or subtracted, all those things. So she certainly, I think she puts in here, yes, that she's also interviewing some new website firms to hire somebody new to do the changes. So I would guess by, in the summer, she's saying she's going to be gathering input. So that will be coming as well.
Okay, good. So she will be contacting each one of us about the website. And then when we pull all that together, will we have a meeting or a workshop or something to take a look at all the ideas together and whether it's meeting what we feel?
Yeah, I think she'll, she's going to do an assessment from a lot of different stakeholders, including you and staff, our CAC, and then maybe even our partners and some of our other general stakeholders. So when she has that information put together, we'll definitely share that with the board and we can talk about that, as well as she's really good at looking at the analytics of things behind our website as well. So you can kind of get a sense for how people are currently using it and then kind of best practices for moving forward.
Okay. We'll look forward to that because there are lots of things I'd like to see on the website right now that are hard to find. Item D is maintenance needs. And this goes back to, actually it goes back to a conversation I had with Brad about that he had some things that he wanted to talk about with maintenance. I know Tina, I've talked to you about the process we have of looking at channel flows, culverts, ditches, and all that kind of stuff in inspection. And the idea here is having someone take a look at this overall issue so that the board can better understand how we're keeping the investments that we made functioning the way they're supposed to function.
So you're looking at some methodology around what our inspection process is,
Right.
what our maintenance thresholds are. Is that what you're?
Yeah, right.
And Cliff has his hand up.
A while back, Tina, we used to have some staff come in and update us on their program activities. It might be useful to have Dave and who's that from Bar that works with him a lot on maintenance?
Greg and Gareth. Greg Nelson, Gareth Becker.
Yeah, Greg Nelson. Yeah. But one of those two come in and actually update us on the process because it is continuous through the year. But we do a routine to check projects and identify issues, and they can go through all that and I think appease the board that are being very thorough on making sure our projects are working good and identifying maintenance needs, and that rolls into the annual project maintenance and repair project each year.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think then we can show you as well. We can show you a map that shows the projects and structures and ditches that we are responsible for, that we claim under our MS4 permit, and also other project information. So you can see the breadth of the work that we're doing, the inspection process. I think if that's something that you think would be worthwhile as a board, we could definitely do that.
I personally, oh, sorry, I should raise my hand. I personally really like this and had a similar comment that I was going to make offline with respect to a lot of the modeling seems to depend on predictability of some of the pieces put into place by this board. And so I really like the idea, not only from let's see how things are working, but just to be able to predict better on how the water, where the water goes. Having an understanding of continual maintenance is probably a good thing to talk about. That's my only comment.
Diane?
Yeah, a couple of comments. One is we are now in spring, so this is a really good time to look at this. So if we're going to have that kind of discussion and information, I'd like it sooner than later. The other thing is I've noticed as we've done projects, and it probably is going to happen with Jarvis Creek too, and it certainly happened with the West Vadnais outlet and things around Grass Lake and other areas. As we've done projects, afterwards there gets to be some additional erosion or shifting of cattails or trees falling in or something. So I would like part of that presentation to include what kind of extra maintenance do they do when we just had a project that's torn up the soil and is likely to cause some of those problems.
Yeah, we can talk about our project process and restoration work, and then how we feed those new projects into our inspection process as well.
Okay, good. We'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting then. Final item on here is workshops. There's a lot of the topics that we have. We never had a real, we never had a final workshop, say on a specific workshop on the Beltline study. And it's been around for a year. It'd be a good idea for a review. We have a lot of topics like that are big topics that are going to take a little more time to go through, and rather than doing them in a meeting, my suggestion is we look at doing workshops. Cliff mentioned, and thank you, Cliff, I was going to bring that up, that a lot of times for shorter topics, I know the Shoreview City Council specifically has workshops that are attached to a meeting. And they meet at night too, so it's not much different than what we have. Or they take a specific time out to do that. So I'm just wondering if board members have any input on that, and if we can develop a list of workshops that we would like to have, prioritize them, and start working through them. Comments?
Guess I'd like to know what ones we've got queued up already, and then maybe we could think about that and feed it in before the next meeting.
Yeah, we don't have any queued up that I'm aware of, but
we were going to have a wetland one before COVID hit, I thought.
Right,
Yeah.
we're going to have a wetland one. And like I say, going back through the Beltline study, now that we have more experience with them, Val mentioned a workshop on the use of modeling and risk criteria that goes with that.
I'd just like to request that we maybe think about what all of the topics we want, and then as a board discuss which ones and prioritize them and come up with a plan from them. Just sounds like you've got a long list, Larry, and I would also be concerned if we started having 3 workshops a month. I work a lot, and that would really be a burden for me.
Yeah.
So I just want to keep that in mind too.
And that's a fair comment. Actually, that's a good process. Is that if the board members want to feed into, I suppose, Tina, requests for the type of workshops they want to look at. We can define those, have a discussion at the next board meeting, and then start to set up the workshops. Does that sound reasonable? We do have the wetlands one, but I'd like to discuss that one before we have it. I'd like to discuss all of them before we have it. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'll just add to that what you just said. It'd be really helpful for a good definition around what exactly you want out of that workshop to make sure we're hitting the mark on those as well.
Right. So let's say then that the board members as needed can send Tina a workshop request, plus they want to get out of it, how they want to have it run, and then we can discuss that list at the next, we'll make it public and discuss it at the next meeting. Does that sound fair?
So am I hearing you want a list of topics and proposed outcome of said workshop?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. Thanks.
Okay, all right. We'll put that on the topic for the next, and that concludes the board section. We move on now to item number 8, which,
Oh, Larry, can I just interrupt? I'm sorry.
yes, go ahead.
Going back to the discussion on the maintenance needs, did you want that at the next board meeting, or did you want that as a topic for a potential workshop?
I would like that at the board meeting.
Okay. All right.
I think there's an urgency for us to understand this and make sure that it sounds pretty good. And again, I would touch base with Brad on that too. I think Dave and Dave, I guess the Dave and Dave show. But,
Mhm.
but Brad indicated he had some thoughts on this too, so you may want to.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what they are. That's all he said.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
I've been quiet, but I've been taking notes the whole time. Trust me.
Okay. Yeah, I know you have.
Thanks, Dave.
Strong silent type. Okay, now on to item 8. Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Item 8. Okay. This is the presentations and action items. So the first one is the Twin Lake Shoreline Restoration Program. Paige?
Yeah, this one we're really excited about. So this will be done similar to the Snail Lake project, where we have a group of homeowners, 15 able and willing to move forward. We had a few people who, for various reasons, decided to wait. Some sites weren't very good, suitable for restorations, but 15 are great. And then Val is actually one, you guys know, he lives on Twin Lake. So he has been part of this from the beginning, which is great. So after talking with Tracy, we, I guess, kind of decided that he would abstain from voting on this. I don't know if I can't remember if we need a vote tonight. I think we do to go to bid and then when we select the contractors. So just so you're aware of that.
Tracy, can you comment on that? Can Val discuss it? And
Yeah, I believe Val can be part of the discussion. It's just that because of him having an interest would be a conflict in sitting and as a manager in which he'd make a decision whether his property would receive some benefit from the district, that it would be wise to abstain due to that conflict. Val, you have any questions about that?
It makes logical sense.
Yes, yep.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, so Val, you can participate. You just can't vote. Okay, sorry, Paige. I just wanted to get that.
Nope. Yep, that's good. Good clarification. Yeah, so we're excited to get this out. We've been working with Ramsey Conservation District or Soil and Water Division to get the plans done. You see those in the packet. We will plan to send this out either tomorrow or Friday, and then they'll be due the week before the next board meeting. So hopefully we can bring specific contractor details, but depends on what we need to do to get through that. So we'll for sure have it at the next board meeting. We have a handful, I think 7 or 8 contractors that we've worked with in the past that we'll send this out to and request bids. And hopefully we're hoping at least 3 to 4 in so that we can review those and make that final decision on who does the work, and then 2 years of maintenance as part of this contract as well.
Okay, do we have any, well, first of all, do we have a motion on this?
Discussion. I'll move to approve the preliminary design estimated costs, proposed project schedule, staff, design and bidding documents, and advertise the project for bid.
Second.
Second, okay, discussion? And I have Diane, unmute, unmute, unmute. There we go.
Just a couple quick things. I was curious why Ramsey County was the paperwork's all from them. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, so they do all the designs for our cost share, our
Right.
stewardship grant program. So some of these bigger ones they do, like they did for Snail Lake. And then for this one, they've done some like our bigger rain garden projects. If we work with cities, they've done that. This was all reviewed by Bar Engineering as well. We had this Matt Kumka, who we work with over there. He looked through it all as well. So it just was more, I guess we didn't need any engineering. So we used their skills for the landscape design side.
Got it. Then the other thing was when the flooding initially or pretty soon after it happened, we had a visit to the Twin Lakes site. Tina went and Cliff and Larry and I did.
Tracy?
And it would be really nice to go back now at some point during the restoration process. So if you could organize that as an option, we're going to be, able to start these outside visits like we used to do almost every other month at some of our projects. And it's always fun to see the before and after. So I look forward to that if you could set it up.
Sure. Good idea.
Yeah, we'll have an idea of the schedule when we get the contractor. Most likely planting won't happen until the fall. We'll have to do site prep this spring and summer and then get the plants in. So
Well, maybe it doesn't happen till the fall or it's a year from now. I just want to see us get back on that and was particularly interested in this one since we saw it at maybe its peak problem time.
yeah, that'll be good. And it's nice that so many project sites are connected. So you'll be able to see a lot.
And just for clarification, because I'm afraid it's just me, I didn't understand. But the big part of this packet is a contract from Ramsey County, but they're not signatories to it. Is that right? Are we just using their contract because and by the way, it is really good. It's one of the best contracts I've ever read. I can understand every single word in it. Is that why it's in here? Because again, like Diane said, it didn't seem to appear when we were doing Snail Lake.
Yeah, I believe Ramsey County did it for Snail Lake as well,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
It might not have been on their letterhead.
Yeah, it might not have been.
Yeah, we had a little bit more, it might have had bar letterhead too, but they put it all together. But
Yeah.
will be the contract will be with us. Ramsey County is
Right.
just assisting. Yep.
I
Yeah.
saw that in and Michael Sherman does a terrific job. I really like him. Okay. We're ready for a vote. Anybody have any other comments on discussion? Oh, Tina, you want to call the roll?
Sure. Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
Diane, Val,
Same.
and Larry.
Aye. Sure.
Good. I just want to give a
moment.
comment that, we had Snail Lake last year and Twin Lake this year, and next year, Ramsey County, Paige is looking at me like, what no, so Ramsey County asked Bill to look at some Lake Owasso shoreline on their park property as potential for restoration. And so Paige and Bill and I will be talking about how we can expand that to residents around the Owasso Lake area as well. So this has been a success. I would say so far it's been a successful program to reach out kind of lake by lake like this. Of course, Owasso is a much larger lake system than we've dealt with in the past, but so we'll have to work out some of those logistics, but just so you know, we'll be having more conversations about that in the future as well.
I do have a curious question. I know I should have asked this during the discussion, but Paige, what happens if one of these property owners that's elected not to participate changes their mind?
Yeah, so we've actually had that happen on Snail Lake. A couple people have now expressed interest because the water levels are down significantly. So they can just go through our regular cost share program.
Okay.
They have grant funds available. It would just be run a little bit different where they would have to hire the contractor, but definitely an option. Yeah, I actually got 2 emails today from Snail Lake people ready to go forward.
Okay, so they wouldn't be grandfathered in, they have to go off on their own. That's
Correct. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, item number B is the 2021-22 BMP Maintenance Program Selection of Contractors.
Yeah, so I can jump in here again. This would be for our ongoing maintenance on our targeted retrofit sites. Some of the schools, Maplewood Mall is on there. A few other natural resource sites were added this year. And we're looking to award those to the same 3 contractors we've worked with in the past, divide those sites up between them. Most of them, they do the project installation and then we like them to continue on with maintenance. So that works out well. Yeah, take any questions?
Okay, let's have a motion first. Do I have a motion for this? Anybody?
I will, I guess.
Okay.
You're
our motion guy.
I'll move to award the 21-22 BMP maintenance contract to Minnesota Native Landscapes, Outdoor Lab, and Sandstrom Land Management for the projects specified in the list, and direct staff to prepare the necessary documents and work with selected contractors.
I'll second.
Thank you. Now, discussion.
Yeah, I had a question. What happened to the Maplewood Living Streets project? We were maintaining that for a while.
Yeah, so we handed that back over to the city of Maplewood. And I don't know if Simba's on, her and Mary still do inspections out there, but the city did a really good job of working with the homeowners, helping with that turnover. We helped with that. Simba, you just jumped down. I don't know if you want to add anything else about your recent inspections.
Just that Mary and I did inspections this fall and reached out to all of the homeowners we saw some issues with. I had a couple of phone calls from folks and we expect to follow up with them again this year and just offer them assistance with plant identification or specific maintenance techniques. Overall, the gardens look pretty good and the city maintained gardens look excellent. So
great, thanks.
If anybody else have comments on this? Diane?
Yeah, just a couple of questions for you, Paige. How do you decide which contractor is getting which location?
Yeah, so usually what we try to do is if they did the project installation, we'll give it to them. So that makes it easy. Some of them, like Maplewood Mall, has been handled by Minnesota natives since like 2013, I believe. So we just try to keep going with that and then divide it out. So the financial side of it works out pretty well too, but we know which contractors can handle they all are great, but which ones handle the bigger sites, kind of just based on past experience.
Thanks. And that's a good segue to my second question. Could you, in the future, just after the name of the company, put the dollar amount that they total? I saw the individual dollar amounts, but if we could have, as part of this recommendation, a list of the dollars, that would be great.
Sure. Okay.
Thanks.
I have a comment too, or actually it's a challenge to Paige, if you will. I noticed in the library that you published the best managed practice supplier list, of which these companies are all on, and there are other ones on there. You may want to get with Lauren on this, or you may want to do it yourself, or you may not want to do it at all. But I would like to see a different title than best management practices. Because even though I know what that means, because I look it up every time I see it, it actually confused me a little bit when it was on the agenda, because everything that touches water, as far as I can see, is a BMP. And a best management practice supplier, when you say it that way, is almost confusing to people. But what you're trying to do is to get, and it's a great list, by the way. I appreciate you putting it on there. See if you can think of another way to label this that would be more communicative outside of the fraternity of watershed specialists, which we are. I know it's a common term, but it's not a common term outside of this profession, I think. So is there something like, I'm thinking like rain gardens and I know it's not just rain gardens, but just try to think of a different way that we can say this.
Sure.
Well,
Yep,
I'd
I
like-
can work with Lauren. Oh,
I'd
go
like to
ahead, Cliff.
chime in though. In the water management plan field, extending to all watershed districts and WMOs, BMP is the term used. And I think if we start using something else, it's going to be confusing to those that are in the field, personally. But you maybe could have a parentheses, whatever, but I think we have to refer to best management practices, but maybe you can have a subtitle or something like that.
Yeah, and to
best
jump on
management
Cliff's note, oh, sorry, Pam, I was going to jump on that. This is used by all watershed districts in the county,
understand that.
so, but we can make
Understand.
changes.
But I hear the concern, and I agree with both of you in that I know when I was early on in the watershed district, all the acronyms drove me crazy. And but this is one where I would agree with Cliff that it's just so standard that maybe perhaps a better way would be to always define BMP as best management practice, and then do what Larry said too, and go on and say best management practices for rain gardens or
Right, I'm fine with that.
compromise.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
It just reads kind of funny on this list, which is, I believe, meant for the public. And so they might not really know what it is you're talking about unless you explain it somehow. And so having a short, like Pam said, a short explanation of what we're talking about. Again, when you talk about BMPs are all over the place. And so this list doesn't have to do with like operating a weir or something like that. It has to do basically with building a rain garden or a driveway or something. So just a little thought process on how to better communicate to the public with things that we're putting out for the public, I think would be helpful. Other than that, roll call. Anybody else have any comments before we move on? Roll call.
All right, Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Val,
Aye.
and Larry.
Aye. Okay, and last item on the agenda, there we go, is the Ryan Drive and Keller Parkway conveyance upgrades, accept bids and order the project.
Yeah, Aaron, you want to go through that?
Sure. So in your board packet, you saw a summary of what happened at the bid opening. I think the last couple of board meetings, we've talked about the purpose for the project and how this is the first of several steps that were outlined as part of the Oahu Basin Bypass feasibility study. We got 4 bids from folks that we have worked with in different capacities before. Fitzgerald Excavating came in at the lowest at $750,543. Fitzgerald Excavating is a known commodity. They've done a lot of work with the watershed district in the past. And Val, I know that you had some questions about, when you see a bid come in lower than the engineer's opinion of cost, you want to think about why that might be. We haven't had an issue in the past with Fitzgerald coming back and trying to get more in terms of changing things to their benefit. We haven't seen that happen with them before. So we've had pretty good experience. Dave, I don't know if you want to chime in on how it's been working with Fitzgerald over the past years.
Yeah, I think everything's been good. There's been a couple smaller change orders, but most of them have all been, some of them you don't know what you get until you dig and you actually take a scoop out of the ground to see the pipe.
Right.
And you're like, oh, geez, for a prime example, you'll see one coming from Bailey's nursery that's coming up. we wanted to replace a pipe. And as soon as they start digging around the pipe, it's like, gosh, the whole trash rack structure itself should be reset, picked up. So that's a little bit out of scope that you guys asked us to do, to just to reset a pipe, but you don't know until you take that first scoop, and then you can kind of so it's a tricky battle of overdoing it versus underdoing it. And yeah, I guess that's a line you just kind of got to call when you're designing the plans and making those calls in the field.
Mhm. The other thing I'll say about the spread of bids is it's nice when we see that there's a range that's sort of bracketing the engineer's opinion of cost.
Yep.
It makes us feel like we were probably in the zone, and that the bidder has probably bid in a way that will be productive for them as well. So any questions?
Yeah, did they know like in the last one we had, they did you reveal the engineer's opinion?
Good question. I don't
No.
So I don't believe they're ever given it as part of the package, but it is public information if they were to view or see the packet from the month before.
Okay, that's fair.
Sometimes we do provide it though, Larry, to your point. I don't
Right.
remember if we did for this one or not. If we provide it to one, we provide it for all.
Sure. Yeah.
It has the same information.
I don't recall if we did it, but we have done it from Jason in the past, has asked for past engineers' estimates on projects after they look at it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I was inquiring mainly out of curiosity, because I know we have to pick the lowest bid or the most responsible contractor. And so that key word responsible, just out of curiosity, what deems that responsible? And I figured track record is ultimately
Yeah.
and that's why I'd asked the question.
Yeah, no, and it's a very good question. I think, if we had an experience in the past with Fitzgerald excavating, I would have come to you and said, well, okay, we had this experience, you all remember, and that actually doesn't happen all that often, but it does come up, and then we talk about it and make a decision. So yeah, it's the right question to ask, but in this case, we haven't had anything that I would put out on the table as something concerning.
I'll just to give you a little,
I would
just to give you a little
comment
feel historically, we had a bidder that really did do poorly. And then we warned them before the next project to say, you
That's
might not
right.
want to spend time or resources in submitting a bid, because we're not going to find you responsible based on our past history with you. And they had statutory violations. So it's been very rare, but to give you historical perspective, we have done that. And we actually started a little slow with Fitzgerald on their very first project. I know Diane isn't a fan of theirs. We had some issues with them, but then the very next project, and I think all the other projects with Fitzgerald have gone quite well.
Right.
I agree. And actually, compared to some of our other projects recently, the bidding is fairly tight on this one. Diane?
Yeah.
Yeah, every time Fitzgerald comes up, everyone thinks I'm not a fan of theirs. And just a little history, what happened was we had a contract with Fitzgerald, and they were supposed to start, I think it was 2018 in April. And month after month, nothing happened. And then I finally said, why can't, and it was because they were a little irresponsible, not good at time management. And Dave explained it. And I said at the meeting, can't we give them more direction? A little tighter handling, a little, more support. Some employees need that. And I was told no. The next year they came in, that's exactly what they got, and they've done great with it ever since. So it's not that I don't like them, it's that I think we should have done that a year earlier.
And also, so everybody remembers, that year where we had trouble was when we had a huge blizzard in the middle of April. And then we had a nice delay from Ramsey County, which we're going to talk about later, and approving people move in. And by the time we went to get started, everything was mushy and we couldn't move anything around. But then again, it took a little bit for Fitzgerald to regain their footing. So that was a year of everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Anyway, do I have a
And
motion?
that's
Any
true,
other-
but they were able to do stuff much sooner and couldn't get their act together. So that's all I'm saying. And it was also the year when we had everything backed up between West Vadnais and Grass Lake, and stuff was really bad, and we lost a whole season of drainage.
Yeah,
But
okay.
like I said, we've had probably 2 full years now of a number of contracts going to them, and they've responded well. So it's not that I don't like them. I didn't like that we didn't sit on them sooner.
And also, just a comment, I think Dave has done a terrific job of working with them too. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you for the comment.
Okay, any other discussion before we? It's gonna be kind of weird because I'm gonna ask for discussion again, but can I motion to approve Fitzgerald as the contractor?
Is this where you second?
No, somebody has to move
We
it.
gotta have a first.
Somebody else want to move this one?
I'll do it. I'll move that we accept the bids and award the Ryan Drive and Keller Parkway conveyance upgrades project to Fitzgerald Excavating, and direct staff to prepare and mail the notice of award, prepare the agreements, and review the required submittals.
Second.
Any discussion? Oh, Tina, call the roll.
Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Val,
Aye.
and Larry.
Aye. Okay, thank you all. Those are the action items. Now on to item number 9, the administrator's report.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions about the meetings attended or upcoming meetings, I'm happy to answer that. Otherwise, we can move into Waterfest.
Anybody got anything up, please?
Okay.
Okay, what?
May I ask just for maybe a verbal summary of the Ramsey County permit follow-up? It sounds like it was really productive. I just was struggling to get the main takeaway.
Yeah, that's an item D.
Oh, forgive me.
Fair enough, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we
Tina?
can talk about Waterfest quick, and then we can move into that as well.
Right.
Waterfest there's an update there. We're still in progress, so there's still more activities and planning, of course, that's going on. So I can provide you another update next month. You should have received an email from a Waterfest account about the line or the theme of the event. So we're collecting those. Maddie was on vacation for a few days last week, so we'll be touching base this week yet. But things are moving along, and we've had really good interactions with some of our past vendors and people who have done displays. So I think we're gonna start putting together this calendar and idea of how this is actually gonna look and work, and I should have more for you next month on that.
I had a couple of suggestions or comments or things like that, take it for what you will.
Yep.
One of the things was that I think it would be fun to consider, because we've talked about it actually extensively at the board meeting, might be to have a Carp Fest area where Bill or somebody or Dave who has the skill set to fix carp and serve it to people, try it out and see what it was like. That may
Love it. I'm all for that. I've been saying that forever. We had smoked fish one day for our watershed district meeting. It was fantastic.
That's exactly right. So that would be one suggestion. But Pam, as long as you're talking right now, I do want you to know that today is National Beer Day.
Oh.
Abstain because I have this meeting, but normally I would be going anyway.
Maybe after the meeting.
Yeah, there we go. After the meeting, I'm done with this.
So I just want to comment on the carp. So we've originally Roseville came to us about doing like a carp fishing contest in Bennett Lake. But then they kind of backed off the idea, but Bill and Lauren and some other staff are still discussing having some sort of contest, and we might pair it with and that's the actual fishing part of it, but I like the idea of smoking and having.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
And just a
So-
side note too, I just want to throw out there is like, if one of our objectives is to get rid of the carp, having maybe an annual award for the biggest carp caught of the season or something might be something we think about, something fun to do with the community
Right.
to encourage folks to pull them out, take pictures and leave them out and educate them. That might be an opportunity.
Yeah, good idea.
Eating contest.
And you will start seeing carp showing up at all these outlets here in the next couple of weeks. You're gonna
Yeah.
start seeing them running. It's about that time of year and they'll be netting them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I heard, Diane, I heard that you organized a good carp netting event as well.
Yeah, my grandkids netted 907 carp and
Oh.
broke 2 nets. But I think the Eagles are probably matching them. It has been
Yeah.
incredible on all of
Wow.
these northern lakes, the fishing that's going on every Monday or morning and evening. And the carp they're carrying are huge.
Mm.
Wow. That's
So I really like the fishing contest or the awards at the end of the season, or combine it with a open house at the watershed with tasting carp or something like that. I think it would meet a whole bunch of goals.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was your grandkids that had done that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's not me, that's for sure.
That's
Are
great.
we gonna PR this Waterfest beyond social media? Do you know? Has Lauren decided on that? So that, like, will we get TV stations involved or anything like that?
Yeah, she's finishing her communications plan right as we speak. And I believe that's all part of it as well. Yep.
Okay, all right. And in there was a comment, I think, about boat rides or something like that, that they said they had to sign up in advance. Are we going to also have a system where they can sign up on site to be able to get the boat rides? So they're not
I'm not,
appointed?
yeah, I'm not sure what the process, I can check with Maddie on that. I think that might be for COVID protocols. I think they wanted to have a pre-sign up so that they could predict the number of people, the procedures, but I'll check with her on that.
Yeah, and I just don't want people to be disappointed and not have any way out if they come and look at it.
Mhm.
Okay, anybody else have any comments? Okay, moving right along.
Ramsey County permitting follow-up. As I mentioned, I met with the director of Parks and Rec, Mark McCabe, and we had a really good discussion. And as I said, the next steps are we're developing general permit language. I'm going to basically take what we've already used for their access agreements and make it a general permit language, talk with Tracy about it, make sure our interests are covered, and then their attorney will review it and we'll go from there.
So he was receptive.
Yes, yeah, he
fair?
was receptive. As I said in there, we talked about if it's a new project or we're making significant changes, suggesting significant changes on a Ramsey County property, the staff would probably want that to be approved by the board.
Sure.
So that would be the difference.
Yeah.
But any of this routine or projects that are already in place that we're maintaining or making modifications to even existing structures or equipment, he thought that was reasonable to have a staff approval for that.
In looking at the specific example of the Keller Weir, would this new process benefit that, or would this still have to go before the commission?
The Keller Weir would be one where we could use the general permit and have staff.
Okay, good.
Yep. That just as an example of a past project that probably would have required a new permit would be like Grass Lake berm, for instance, or that was a considerable project that changed the flow of water and landscape on their park. So I think that's a case where they would want the board to approve that as a whole, as a new project versus a existing one.
Yeah.
Did you talk about the timing on going to the board? Because I know that was an issue with the Keller Weir.
As far as the new projects or the general permit?
The new ones.
Yeah, that's, we did talk about that, and, you know, he said that, you know, the process can be onerous as far as getting on the agenda, but he did think that there could be some improvements. What we found ourselves in this, a little bit of a conundrum, is we didn't have enough information that they wanted to like actually write the whole permit, because we didn't have the plan sheets weren't completed, or there wasn't, you know, access and how we were going to access, how we were going to restore, all that hadn't been done. We just knew we were doing a project on their property. But he thought that they could improve the process of getting us scheduled on an agenda prior to all that being figured out, so that we don't have to wait until we have that all figured out and then get scheduled on the agenda. And that's where we would get pushed out.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, I think we have a much better process, streamlined process in place.
Okay, good, great. Does anybody else have comments? Diane?
Just a question or comment. Again, it's spring. It'd be nice. We've been held up, especially the Keller Weir. Could you report on this at our next meeting and make it a monthly thing until we get it done, please?
For the permit?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Next item is intern hiring.
Yeah, that's just for your information. Unless you have any questions or comments, but we have another good class this year. Yes, Diane?
Was there any diversity outreach?
Yes, so in both cases, there was new job fairs that for both NR and the communications took advantage of different job fairs, so not the same one. I would say that was the biggest part. And also they're just allowed, I think, a wider variety of applicants because of the format. So it was all online. It was very accessible for people to apply and to schedule. It was all done within one program that allowed them to apply, schedule their interview, and interview for the position. So I do think that it was a more accessible and diverse friendly process this year.
So you had some diverse applicants?
We did, yes, yep. And in fact, our communication hire is a person of color as well. So.
Great, thank you.
Super, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else on that topic? Then we go to, where would it go? Office building updates.
Office building updates. So I just provided some pictures there for you. Like I said, someday we'll be able to be in there together.
We'll see him, yeah.
And see him in person. There were changes to the boardroom and to the staff office spaces. I also provided an update on the in-person meeting technologies, as Larry, we talked about last month. All the equipment's there. I just need to have our consultant out to make sure everything's wired up and connected so that when we are back in person, we can continue to video record. We'll probably continue to use Zoom. We'll all be in person, but then they'll be recorded through Zoom and uploaded to our YouTube channel.
When you finish meeting and you get this thing all primed for when we actually reappear, can you come back to the board before that time and just review how it's going to work so we know what it is ahead of time?
Yep, absolutely. And I'm going to talk to Tracy too about, I know that, we use some emergency powers or however that works in order to do the online meetings like this. And I'm curious about some of the availability for, let's say, residents to, well, I guess like a city council meeting, they could watch live, right? If that's available, that be available for our constituents as well. And also if they're able to watch live, would they also be able to give comments over the Zoom platform, or would they need to be in person, I guess would be the other question that.
And I don't know if that's a legal question. That might be a board preference. If you say, okay, this means enough to you, appear, but anyone can log in and watch at any time. So, right. I mean, I think that might be more of an issue for the board. I'm not seeing any legal obstacles one way or another.
Yeah, that sounds good.
when I was part of the North St. Paul Planning Commission for a number of years, the city council had been on live broadcast for quite a while, and they wanted to broadcast the planning commission meetings. And a number of us on the commission objected. My objection at the time, and I think it probably would still hold, is that I feel self-conscious knowing that hundreds of people may be watching and trying to pick apart everything we say. Sure, they can go on the video and they can see it, or they can, but I don't know. I still have to think about whether or not I would want our meetings telecast.
Right. So that would be the decision, is if they would just be recorded like they are, or if they would be live broadcast.
Yeah.
And recorded.
My experience, and I've had it with the number like watching Shoreview City Council and watching the Ramsey County Commissioners, is they do broadcast live, but they limit the interactions from the outside. So when I sit and watch a meeting, I can't just interact with them except for possibly in that area where you're having visitor presentation. Anyway, that's a great topic for discussion. We're not prepared to do it right now, but when you review this, Tina, let's have a board discussion on that as to how we move forward with it.
Yep.
Good topic. Got it. Okay, that's the end of your administrator's report, I guess.
That's correct.
I can't wait to see the new, I guess I've seen the new carpet, but the new offices. So that could be first on our hit list for tours.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, attorney report.
I just have a couple of things, and Val, just kind of get you up to speed too. When a project is bid and the bids are accepted, we then review project documents. We look at the bonds for payment or for performance. We look at the liability insurance, and we look at the documents that the successful bidder receives. So one of our big projects this month was looking at the responsible bidder forms, and we updated them for the statutes for Minnesota, but we also updated them looking at new documents. I mean, they're still a little bit on the older side, but updated documents through the engineers. I don't know what that is. It's a big acronym, right, Aaron? But we are looking at using more updated project documents as a whole. So Lauren and I worked together to revise the responsible bidder contract. And under Minnesota statute, we also have to have those contractors agree that they're following all the state statutes for their subcontractors, and they need to be bound to that. So we did update those forms, and that was really kind of the major issues that we did besides the routine things each month.
Great. Comments? Nope. Okay, now we're moving on to project and program status reports. Do we have any presentations, or do board members want to have further information on any of the projects? Diane.
And just a little one on the CARP update, which was great. I remember last year Bill saying he was going to do something in West Vadnais Lake, and I didn't see that on the list.
Yes. Oh, there's Simba. Go ahead, Simba.
The electric carp barrier at West Vadnais has been installed and should be operational either tomorrow or Friday. We have to wait to get some fencing installed and some signage installed. So, but Carp Solutions was working on that today. As far as other things going on in West Vadnais, that's Vlamo is our partner on this project. They have budgeted to do a fish survey next year, not this season. And they did a aquatic plant survey in 2019. They don't have any plans to update that this year. So that's where we stand with West Vadnais.
Thanks.
Is that carp barrier at the inlet to the pipe underneath 694 in the
That's
wetland?
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
A6, yeah.
Thanks.
And is A6 fully operational now? It's got the wheel that moves up and down and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Would Gabriel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No problem. Anybody else have anything on there they would like? No? Okay. We're on to item 12, which is managers' comments and next month's meeting. So in this one, we'll go around the managers, ask if there's anything they want to know about and any topics that they have that we would like to have on next month's agenda. So Tina, you want to run the roll?
Oh,
Sure, we'll start with Cliff.
okay. My only question was, have we thought about what criteria we want to use for when we will have an in-person board meeting and the tour of the building and whatever else we might want to do? I don't know about the managers here, but I imagine several of us have gotten our vaccine. I assume by the end of this month or early next month, the rest of us hopefully will. It's a big relief to have it. But could that be the trigger once we're all vaccinated and 2 weeks after our second dose or something like that?
I think that personally, I think that we would need to make some decisions though, because our space doesn't allow for social distancing for residents. And
Right.
So we would need to figure out how we would address the availability and accessibility for residents.
Yep.
You know, and we can't be assured that we have a good vaccination rate amongst our residents. So and that's maybe where, I don't know if there's a hybrid approach where the board is in the room together, but the residents are watching online or not.
Pam?
I'm glad you brought that up, Cliff. Tangent of that, I've also discovered myself that I attend so many meetings all day that it saves me so much time Zooming that I might prefer to Zoom to meetings even though I've already got one vaccine. And so I know the laws have changed, and I would like to also request that maybe we find out whether we can always have hybrid meetings and how many board members have to be there, and could all or half of us decide to join virtually if we decide to.
Yeah, I think that's possible. Actually, Tracy, you may comment on the state law that's been adopted to accommodate remote attendance.
Right. And I know that it certainly was adopted through 2021. I haven't really looked to see if that's continuing or if it's a permanent. And I think we have a great resource in the Minnesota League of Cities. I don't know,
Yeah.
Tina, maybe we should turn to them and see what they're kind of recommending.
Yeah.
And I can do that, Tina, if you want me to follow up on that. But I think we might as well, we're a member of it. And I think it'd be interesting to see what they're kind of recommending.
Yeah, they've definitely been my resource and been navigating over this last year. So I definitely following what their members as far as cities are doing and other watersheds. I actually just sent a survey out to all the Metro watershed administrators asking kind of the same question, like, how are you going to decide when? Have you discussed when?
Okay.
Board meetings for staff, for that whole thing. So I'll actually have some survey results back for you if you.
Okay, great.
Let's make sure that's on the agenda for the next meeting too. That we can,
Okay.
It's a really good point, Cliff, is that it's rapidly changing. The wording we have now as to why we're doing this is because we have a health problem, but when the health problem is declared not to be so critical, there's going to be criteria that is going to be put in place that's different than it is now.
Yeah.
You understand that, rather than rush back together. And Tina, this will also be impacted, I think, by the hybrid model, communications model that you'll be working on with the cameras and the Zoom and sort of stuff. So, okay. Cliff, anything else?
I just have a question on that environmental forum for tomorrow night. Even though I'm registered and I got acknowledgement, are we getting emailed a link to actually tune into the Zoom meeting? I haven't seen one.
Oh, I wish I believe that is part of it, yes. I mean,
Yeah,
I
'cause I got
believe
it
that
down.
that's coming from Eventbrite, through the Eventbrite mailing list.
Okay, Okay, I'll look for that.
Do you think somebody think it was
Definitely
part of
hope-
the
yeah.
confirmation?
Yeah, I thought that came as part of the confirmation, but
There wasn't a Zoom link in it.
okay, I'll look at that. I'll
Okay.
look at that right now.
Thanks.
Okay, Cliff, anything else?
That's all for me. Thank you.
Okay,
And we can go to Pam.
thank
I
you.
have nothing. Thank you.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks, Pam. Good to see you again, by the way. We missed
Oh,
you.
you too.
Yeah. Okay,
And Diane?
Everybody's covered it. I was gonna ask about the meeting options too, and I hope we can work out some kind of a hybrid thing. I assume it's helpful to staff to not have to sit through the whole thing too, with a little more flexibility this way. And like Pam, it's been actually a good thing for me. So
Yeah,
I look forward to hearing what the options are. Thanks.
yeah, sounds good. Val?
I voiced in discussions today, nothing more to add.
Great. And Larry?
I had a couple of things. As usual. We have some topics for the next meeting. Tina, I'll get them to you so we can put them in the agenda.
Yep.
If anybody has something that they want on the agenda, let us know before we put the agenda together for the next meeting. But we're gonna have Dave and Dave talk about the maintenance. We're gonna have a relook at the Wetland A Snail Lake area, just an update on that. We're gonna be submitting our ideas for workshops so that we can look through them and prioritize them. We're gonna be, had something down here about the permit process, so I think we're gonna be looking at that. And of course, then we have what Cliff just brought up, which is the idea of what kind of meetings, when are we gonna go back to in-person meetings, or what are we gonna go back to is kind of that ongoing issue. And we'll talk about resuming, as part of that, resuming tours. We can easily social distance on tours, if you will, because as I recall, we all drove separately to go to the tour and hopped onto the car. And I told Val that was one of the most valuable things that I had, because you can conceptualize something that you've only seen on paper. So it's a really good thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had two more questions, and one was, we've talked about putting a consolidation page on the website for the levels of the lakes. Have we done that?
No, I think she's working with staff on that, and we're waiting until we pull in all the lakes. So we have the handful of them that are we're still working to get connected into the site. So once we get
Okay.
the on.
Okay, thank you. I was hoping it just wasn't me not being able to find it. And is there anybody, I will tell you, I brain shanked. I got up in the morning, I saw that the legislative event was supposed to take place, and I got busy doing something else. And by the time I realized that the legislative event was going on, I'd missed it. Anybody attended, and did anything exciting happen?
No,
No?
I didn't. I was going to attend, but I had something come up that day and I couldn't go.
Yeah.
So I think I told you I had an appointment at the, but
Okay.
they did post it on their website, so you can watch the recording.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. I just wondered
Okay.
if anybody had
Yeah.
attended it. Okay, that's fine. That was all that I had. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, now we're on item number 13. Do I have a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Second,
Seconded.
all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you, everybody.
Good seeing you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye now.
Cliff, I found the link.
Whoops. What?
Yeah, in the email, you actually just view your ticket. So you have